Parts, biggie too.
Okay. And your service work, is that done primarily in a shop or in the field, or?
Yep. So we view ourselves as a services company first and foremost, and we use our services we provide refurbished equipment for rental houses where they send machines into us to refurbish. We do have some mobile, but it's a small piece. Most of the stuff comes to our shop, and we are one location.
Okay. And then Kevin said something about
your has to be mobile since we're out of bays.
Right. So, okay, well, here Kevin on. So why don't you guys go ahead?
Well, Kevin started to tell us a little bit, just kind of tell us, or at least in my case, Jason may know a lot of this, but just you said something about you say you have 3 systems, but you really have 4.
Yeah, we've got a maintenance pro recorder system. We got QuickBooks as our general ledgers. We got Zoho as our customer, and we got Excel managing the data that doesn't come cleanly out of those 3 systems.
Gotcha. Okay.
I wasn't sure where you guys dropped off at, so that was where I was at. And basically, in the last 4 years, what we've tried to do is get our processes standardized, get our methodology standardized of how we are approaching business. And the next step now is to basically have a system take us to the next improvement in those processes.
Okay. And so I understand your primary business is refurbishing equipment for rental houses.
Our primary business is service, and the process is the same whether I refurbish it for sale, whether I refurbish it for a customer, whether I refurbish it for a consignment sale, whether I refurbish it for rent. The process is the same no matter what we're doing as a piece of equipment hits the yard.
Okay. And so you do and so you do some rental then, obviously. Well, I guess we met you at the ARA, so I would hope
yeah,
so.
we do rental, more re-rental. Again, use the same process. Our services, we bring in machines, refurbish it through the same process, and then put it back out for re.
Okay.
Sean, line 2, Sean, line 2, please.
All right. So in our system, from a service standpoint, most people drive everything through what kind of started as Dispatch Central, but it's really Service Central, because it essentially is a log of all of the work that's currently being that's currently open open items. Now they could be situations where maybe the work order isn't open yet, but the work, it's essentially a log of all of the service work that needs to be done. And so we've got a shop log, a field log. We also manage scheduled maintenance or PM type work. And then you can also keep track of quotes and things like that in here as well.
So would you do me a favor and just take us through as if an asset came in, customer brought a machine in, and they want it refurbished, and just show us how the asset gets entered, how we write work orders against that asset, and go from that. Just if you would walk through that process.
Sure. All right. So it all kind of starts from call entry, and so you'd have a branch identifier, and we'd say maybe Joe Schmidt is the guy that brought it in, and he's with the company, a company called the Schmidt Companies, and so we'll just do that. And if there's a PO that's required for this customer, we'll let the person entering the call know that, so they know at some point they're going to have to get a PO. Then we also have a number of alerts that you can set up. And so this particular customer has an alert set up on them. But we have alerts for customers, vendors, your equipment, your customer's equipment, parts. So anytime you need to have alerting set up.
Is that alert set up, that particular one, that the guy's hard to work with, the customer or the salesperson selling it to the customer? Okay, anyway.
Now that would be the
had a little bit of
customer's
humor there, telling you that we're okay, but anyways, go ahead.
Okay. All right, and so then you get down to a point where you're going to enter the equipment that they either you're going to enter the equipment, or maybe this is equipment that you sold the customer. So we keep a file of ownership for the customer. So I'm going to select this one off the list here because it just has several things set up on it. So we brought in information as we started entering the information into the call entry screen. You see a lot of these things have all populated in red. These tabs, this item here, the equipment memo, all that stuff all lit up based on the customer's machine or the customer themselves. So in this case, we've got characteristics about this particular machine. And these items that are on the left-hand side here are all customizable. So you can, whatever you want to track about machines, you have the ability to do that. And then, so essentially, if you've got, part numbers or serial numbers or whatever you want to track for this equipment, you can put those in as characteristics, and then they'll stay with the, this shows up in the work order, shows up to the tech, it shows up all along the way.
Are they customizable by category of equipment, per equipment?
Today they are all just customized. You just have a single characteristics.
So basically, I have a template that I would go in and use and enter in all the custom fields.
Right.
And every piece of equipment would have the same fields.
Today, yes.
Okay.
Now, could we do something? Could we do something by say group and product code? I'm sure we could do something for you in that regard. But today, it's all just one set of characteristics. And then we also have equipment memos. And so these would be notes that, and there's two sets of these. And the reason there's two sets is there's a set that when you own the equipment, and then a set for the customer's notes. So it's maybe after the equipment had been purchased. All right, so you said we're going to refurbish this. And we can log it in here as a field job, and we can default this so it says shop for you, so you don't have to do that work. And we also have a couple of other customizable fields. This billing reference, you can customize that to be whatever you want, as well as this. And this shows up in that log that we showed you earlier. So your options here is you can just add it into the system, or you can open the work order and add it all at the same time. So we'll just go ahead and get the call log. And the system can be set to assign the work order number for you, or in my particular case, I am set up for to do my own work order number.
Okay, so let me repeat what I heard. Those can be sequential numbers generated by the system.
Yeah.
That work order number, correct?
Yes, and that's typically the way it's done.
What I heard. Oh, sales
Right,
guy.
so we get that customer alert again. Our application types for our work orders are general, warranty, scheduled maintenance, unscheduled maintenance, or abuse. So in situations where you maybe rented this and maybe the customer damaged it, you can put that in a separate category.
Do those different categories take you down different process ranges, or is this just a status window, just a information box?
Well, if it's a warranty work order, we log it into our warranty tracking system.
Okay.
If it's abuse, it just breaks it out into a separate category. So if you were reporting the maintenance back to the customer, you know, you've got, here's these general work, and here's these items that, you know, that you abuse the equipment, essentially, or avoidable charges, right? So in case because we have a maintenance expense report, and it would categorize those all on it separately.
Okay.
All right, so then based on the customer, we may have some miscellaneous shop supplies that's going to automatically get charged to the work order, and you could have a number of additional items here. Also, this is the equipment that we entered. Again, our characteristics are right here if we want to look at them.
You don't have to go there, but can those the factors that you're adding in, can we just set up percentages against like labor to the work order, or program those someplace in the program?
Yeah, so you can calculate it off a percentage of items that are on it can either be a flat amount. You can calculate it off a percentage of something on the work order. You know, either a percentage of parts or percentage of labor or whatever applies. And then in this case, the customer has specific information for service. So maybe they have a purchase order that's a blanket purchase order. This is where their add-on and discount codes are coming from. You know, maybe different not to exceed numbers before you have to get approval by model number. You know, whatever might apply. You can change the ship to. We've got the tech. The tech was assigned automatically because this particular customer, likes this tech or whatever. That came in from customer specific also, but we could assign it to a different tech if we wanted to. And then we can just add this, and now we've opened the work order. The next thing it takes us to...
You passed something by that was really important on the last screen. If you can go back to that last page. There's a box that I was going to ask you about.
Okay. How do I go? Because the next thing it takes me into is adding work order segments. Yeah, so we'll just say yes, no. All right, so
where was it at?
So I was in the work order add screen. Here, let me just bring up the work order add screen. It's pretty the easiest thing to do here.
Page 2 of it, I believe.
1 second. Oh, I'm in change. Sorry, hold on. Here, let me see if it'll even let me get. It's enforcing some controls on me here. Not typing very well today, so. Okay, to page 2.
Down here at transportation we're requested. What happens when you click that box?
We log it into our transportation system.
Yeah, okay, that's part of the whole module. It's part of what comes with the package.
Yeah, so it logs it in. This is the transportation log. And so depending on what you're doing, if it's delivery or a pickup or a transfer or whatever, it would show up in the dispatch.
So if I got a service phone call and the guy's 45 miles away and he calls up and says, hey, when you're making a rental drop off up in this area, pick up my lift, I would click on that and basically set up a bill of lading like you have here in this list to pick it up on such and such a date by such and such a date, and it would track it.
That is correct.
Okay.
And so you would have ones that are dispatched, ones that have been are not dispatched, ones that are dispatched, and then as they get completed, they go to history.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for all that trouble, but that was a important little box there.
No problem. And you can actually request that at any point. So if you click it up here, you can actually request transportation on it. So anywhere in the system where you logically might have a need for getting something transported, we've got that same selection, so you can put it in.
And you can track quotes on that transportation, right? So here's an example. We got three options for transferring something. We have an over-the-road trucking company that's a sister's company with us that we use because of pricing. We can put it on the bid list out there and get it shipped commercially, or I have my rental fleet when it's available to deliver. All three are different costs. And basically, the customer is going to get quoted a number that it's going to be around this. Is there a way to track it when you put the log in for pickup or delivery?
That you quoted that amount? Let's see. Well, you can choose the carrier. You can put some special instructions in. That's one option. We could also add a category here for.
You got it down on the bottom right, estimated. Is that what that box for?
That's actually estimated day and time.
I'm sorry. Okay.
But I mean, like I said, we could add a category here for you of quote if if that's something you need to do. We add stuff to the system all the time based on what customers need. So if that's something you needed, then we could add that to the system. We may have other customers want the same thing, just hadn't asked for it yet.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we've got our work order open. We don't have any parts on it because it's because it's blank. If it had back-ordered parts, we give you an indicator here that there's back-ordered parts. The ones that say PTS on them means that all of the parts that are requisitioned to the work order are all in stock. It also shows up in a color of blue, which tells us that it's that the work order is open and the tech is assigned. The ones where you see that are in black means that those indicators are not there. You also have the ability to take a look at, say, service history for this particular unit. So we've got all this service work that we've done on this particular one. You can drill down into the job and take a look at it. So this is what was invoiced on it, what part we used, labor, miscellaneous detail, any notes, and then we also have notes that are on the invoice, and then we also have notes internal notes that just stay with the work order but do not show to the customer.
Okay, the one that I'm interested in a lot is how do I define job tasks, basically provide instructions, do an estimate to quote out to customers or internal customers. In other words, I have a work order and I plan it, and there's 17 items. There's 5 items I need to get done on it. I need to quote them, and a customer may come back and say, I only want you to do 2 out of the 5. So I need a way to estimate it with parts and labor to allow the customer to match their business requirements.
So would you, do you flat rate that, or how do you?
Well, flat rate that. I would, right now, that's what we do, yes. I have a billable rate that I quote out by hours.
No, I think
I
we're
am not
referring
quoting per technician.
it's a line item hourly calculation with the part numbers.
So you do so you just go in, you basically the same way you open up a work order is the way you open up a quote.
Okay.
So you just tell it it's a quote instead of another type.
It looks like if I mess that up and I open up a work order, I can always go back and change it to a quote.
Yes.
Okay.
So this gets the, so you have the ability to add, if you want to add notes, you can add notes there. But this opens up, this gets the, and so what I'm referring to as flat rates are either, just putting in an amount that is going to be for the entire job, or just flat rate the labor and then the parts or whatever the parts are, or there's a or the miscellaneous. So you could flat rate that entire thing. The other option is you can use our flat rates, and they actually do have instructions and things like that in them, and they use standard hours, and then we can actually give you variance reports and things like that, so you can see where you are against the standard hours at any point. But they can include parts, notes, miscellaneous. As you can see, there's like this hydraulic pump here, has 125 standard hours, $2,500 in parts, and $250 in miscellaneous.
And that's specific for this piece of equipment.
It can be, yes.
It can be. I'm more interested in it's not. Here's what I currently do, okay?
Okay.
Not inside the system, but outside the system, I've got planning libraries. So basically, I have a 60-foot boom lift, and I have extend cylinder rebuilds. I have toggle switch replacements. I have e-stop replacements. I got general service. I've got something like 110 different failures that I fix in that category, okay? And basically, each one of those have hours. The parts are going to vary because it's across all different manufacturers. But what I'm finding is the difference between my hours on a 60-footer between a Skyjack and a Genie and a JLG is not that different. So I can have this library where I can estimate the labor against tasks, list the tasks, have the labor, and then basically go assign parts based on the very specific serial number and model number to get an accurate estimate.
Okay.
That's how we're currently doing it. Is there a way to utilize what you have in your program to set that up, something like that?
Yeah, so, and you could do that, you could do that where you're just, it's just quoting the hours, and then you go and put the parts on individually.
Are they pre-selected? Can I just start typing and they show up? In other words, when I start in my current system, when I type general service, it just automatically shows up as a task, fills into the work order box. When I type in extend cylinder, seal replacement, it just fills in. And because I then enter the labor based on the category I'm having, but the tasks come in automatically.
Yeah, so I started typing in install, and it gave me a match.
Gotcha.
To anything that had it, and then I can just select it. And you see here, it brings in the flat rate, the labor, the parts, and the miscellaneous as flat rated.
Okay. And if I wanted to change the parts used in that task, how would I do that?
The actual parts list?
Yeah.
Well, in this, on this particular case, it's just flat rating. We're going to say, hey, it's going to be $2,500 for the parts, and then we can assign the actual parts later.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, I got you.
Or it can be already assigned to the flat rate.
Yeah, I
So
got
what
you.
you could consider doing, what we typically do in that particular case, if that's what you want to do, is we'll put something in the flat rate code, this flat rate control code, and then sometimes we'll use the component job and modifier some way or another to identify that it's for a particular model of equipment. So you really only so then you're really flat rating the parts that are specific for that particular that particular model.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I got lost.
Then you say add, and then you've got notes that you can edit. And then it takes you to the next segment or the next step in the process.
And you can start typing something else and it'll give you another
Yeah,
app.
I didn't see what was on, actually, no, I'm not that familiar with that list. So, okay. So I can go. And then it's just a flat rate of labor. And then any parts that get applied to this segment will be charged at whatever they are.
Right. Okay.
And then it just keeps taking you, each one of the steps. As you go through it. And then here's your work order estimate with each segment of the work order. Now, depending on which one of these that we have several different formats of this. You can have one where you can say, have the customer, initial each segment saying that they want it and then sign at the bottom. So we've got a couple of different, options in that regard. And just remember, this is just the text portion. This is not what the customer really sees.
Okay, if there was specific parts assigned to this quote, okay, that are in stock, are those parts reserved? Are they, nothing happens to them because this is just in the quote section? This is sort of like
nothing
a sandbox play on that work order?
Yeah, so we'll let you, go ahead.
Now, there's three things that happen. They're put on reserve, but they're still counted in inventory. They're checked out of inventory, or this is like a sandbox and nothing happens to the actual inventory while you're working through your quote. It only happens when you convert it. So what's behind your system?
So in our case, we'll tell you whether the part is in inventory or not, but we don't do anything. We don't reserve it. We only do that when we convert the work order. And then when we convert the work order and you put the work order, when you requisition the part to the work order, we do relieve inventory and put it in work in process.
Okay. Now, this is setting up back to the asset and the customer, but can I have different labor billing rates or discounting and different parts markups and discounting by customer name, specific customers?
Yeah, you can do that to an individual customer, or you can do it to a group of customers.
Okay.
So at minimum, right? You've got trade customers, maybe warranty customers and internal customers, and each one of them can have a different rate.
Okay.
And then so we do that using class codes. So you can class customers together. If you have customers where you want to offer individual pricing, you can do that as well.
Okay.
All right. So then if you want to convert the quote, your options here are to convert the quote, copy the quote, do an update to it, or to delete it. And we keep the quote and the work order number separate. They tie together, but we keep them separately because we give you the ability to keep this quote out there if you want to reuse it. Because as you notice here, we can actually reprice this to another customer.
Right.
So if you have things that you do, pretty frequently, the same thing over and over again, you can create a quote for that particular job, that job type, and then just reprice it for the customer.
Yep.
In this case, we'll keep it the same customer. And then what it's doing next, as we've converted the quote, is we have a few options here. So this is taking us into requisitioning parts, basically. So our options are we can convert we can bring in a quote. So maybe you had your parts people create a quote for it. Then you can convert a quote, and so you just give it the quote number, and we'll pull those parts in. Yeah, I want to turn that off. I guess I don't want to say that. Yeah. Apparently you don't want to check that box and not have a quote to put in there. Let's say this quote, work order and escape is not allowed. You must end this document. How do I do that? Well, apparently I'm hung up here. All right, so I'm just going to get a counter quote here set up real quick. It doesn't seem to want to let me past that. 39.92. Seriously? Okay, sorry about that. All right, so then what we do is we bring in anything that was on that quote until we get to a point where, so if the stuff is in stock, we just bum, and then we get to a point where we have to make a decision. So so we've got some parts that aren't on the order. And so now we've gotten those added, and now those are requisition. What? Killing me today. The quote got converted. Oh my gosh. Complaining about having different serial numbers on the work order. Anyway, apologize for the difficulty. It's not something I normally do, so I'm struggling with it a little bit. It works a lot better than I'm showing you. I can assure you that. Oh, that was my problem. I didn't have the right, my biggest problem was I didn't have the right, I didn't put in the right quote number. That's why I was complaining. All right, so if depending on how you want to get labor and things like that onto the work order, we have the ability for you to create a barcoded work order. So the tech would scan a barcode that represents them. Then they would use a barcode that represents the segment or the step of the work order that they're logging onto. So it would basically punch them on the job. Their options are to go to lunch or go on break or end of day, and then we'll punch them off that segment of the work order. Or they can go to another segment of the work order or another work order entirely. And again, we'll just punch off those particular segments of the work order. Then you can monitor the work so you can see if the actual labor hours or the parts are exceeding what you quoted from a standard hours or standard parts scenario. And then we highlight those segments that are running into issues in red.
And the mechanics log with those barcodes, can they do something with, like with their iPhones or phones, smartphones?
In development right now, we have an iOS or Android application that will let you do that. So they could, in that particular case, they could actually do quite a bit more than what they do with that scanning. Now, what typically happens with that scanning is that you just have a kiosk or something set up in the shop where they just go in, they go and scan whatever it is they're doing. It's just running on a PC, so they don't have to have.
That's fine. I like where you guys are going.
Now the other option is they also can add parts, labor notes, and things like that also through this screen. We've got a number of different ways to get labor notes, parts, those types of things all onto the work order. You can just kind of choose whatever the best method is for your business.
Okay. So what happens if a work order is released? It says it needs 4 ABC parts. Mechanic or the technician's working on it, but he realizes at the end of the day he only needs 3 ABC parts. What happens to that 4th part? How do we make sure it's trapped so we can revise the original quote to the customer as well as back into inventory?
Well, yeah, so would you go back and revise the quote to the customer, or would you just get it, I mean, they accepted the quote, you continue to...
Well, we got to revise the billing. If we charge them for 4, but only use 3.
Right. So in that case, you would, if you only use 3, so if you requisition 4 to the work order and you decide, hey, I don't need all those, you can return 1, which takes it off of the work order and returns it to inventory. So essentially, in order to do that, is you'd use, the work order detail entry, and you just say it's a return.
Okay. And then how do we make sure we can update the billing to the customer?
That would automatically do that.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so it'll just bill the customer for 3.
Okay.
Okay, let's say this is part, instead of using the same part where I build them for 3 and I put 1 back. Let's say I used them, I had given 2 parts that I was going to use, and one of the parts was a spot buy. I do not stock it. I have no min-max, anything else. And I purchase it, and now I need to put it back in and give credit to it. Is there any limitations on putting a credited part against a non-stocked item? So if there's a flag in your inventory called non-stock, can I still have a value of 1 in inventory?
Yeah. Yeah, even if it's non-stock.
Okay.
So there's no limitation there. So if you bought it and you don't, it's a non-stocking part, maybe you just bought 1, you requisition it, you put it on the work order, and then if you had to return it, it would return it back to inventory. It still has, say, non-stock on it. Okay. And it may not even have a bin location.
This is a small point for parts management, but do you actually track the individual parts costs that come in and we charge out the oldest cost first, or do you track on an average cost?
We do LIFO, FIFO, average, and current. You choose the method that you want to use.
So if I had a part that cost $2, $3, and $4, and I choose first FIFO, the first part checked out would be a $2 part. The third part would be a $4 part.
Right.
Okay.
Now, in regards to parts, so do you are you an authorized distributor for anybody? Do you get price files from anyone?
Distributor for 4 different companies.
Okay. What we do in that particular case is in our parts master, that is where we would take those price files and we would load them in here. So I'm just going to put this part in here as an example. And so we get, most of the time we get a cost and a list price, and we put those in these buckets. Generally, the cost goes in 6 and the list price goes in 1. However, you may have national account pricing or whatever the situation, whatever. We may generate some additional or sell rate buckets here that you may want to use for, different types of reasons. And then usually in 7 and 8 is where we put the core cost and sell rate. So what I'd like for you to think about is this is the catalog of all the parts, whether you've ordered them before, sold them before. So at least when at least when the first person shows up, we'll at least have this information about the part. And then we also maintain safety data sheets if you need those as well. And you can have an option to print those at the time of the order or whatever. And so then what we do for you automatically is the first time you sell a part, maybe a customer asks you even what the cost of the part is, we create a branch parts master for you automatically. And that's when we start tracking the history of the parts usage. So in this case, it's a stocking part in this branch. It's got a main location and a secondary location. Maybe we sell it under this number, but we actually buy it from this alternate source and what their part number is. We also have substitute parts or supersession parts, depending on whatever. So that's actually bringing in any substitutes or supersessions. And then you also have the ability to have memo notes on the part. And then what we have on hand now, on order now, the minimum quantity and the maximum quantity can be set by the system based on an inventory parameter. Unless you've frozen either the max or the min temporarily or permanently. If it's temporary, you can say I want to protect it for a certain number of months, and then we'll automatically lift it. And then why it was protected, and you can have safety stock, package sets, and quantities. And in this case, my system's set up for average cost, and so it shows us it on hand at an average cost. On the history tab for forecasting inventory, we use the 25 months of history. So we have the current month and the previous 24 months. So in our case, we have call and demand. So if somebody was, for instance, if you had the situation where you had the work order that had the 4 parts on it, that would be 1 call, 4 demand. And then we keep track of when it went on the system, when you last counted it, received it, sold it, ordered it, or any activity whatsoever. So we've got, replaced parts, substitute parts, kits and components. Under the inventory parameters. Go ahead.
Is your system capable of, do you have any examples of where your system's directly tied to OEM catalogs, where they update a price, your system goes out, compares all the part numbers, and basically updates the database? We do that. We don't do that with a lot of people, but we do it with a few. Okay, TVH. Who was it?
TVH is one that I know of off the top of my head that we do that with. My system's not set up to do it, but that it goes up and it requests the current pricing and availability on the part. And then we have some where it's not automatic, but you can do it. Where it kind of works like this. Let me, just don't know my part number here. Where if we get a hit on a manufacturer and a part that we have that capability, we get this icon up here that they can click and it goes off and looks at the current availability.
Outside of
like
the
that.
system or inside the system?
No, this is inside the system. So we actually communicated, in this case, we communicated off to Vermeer, the manufacturer, and pulled back this information. So it just depends on what the manufacturer's capabilities are more than anything.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then our inventory parameters, you can set that up for a branch, warehouse, or service van. So you can set it up by a branch, a manufacturer, vendor, and then what the source is. So you can have a different inventory parameter depending on where you're sourcing it. So if you're sourcing it from the, absent a source, then you're sourcing it from the manufacturer. But if it's something you're buying down the street, but you're selling it under this manufacturer's number, then your lead time obviously is less. So basically you set up from the time that the time it goes to minimum to the time you receive it and get it back into the bin, how much time does that take? And that's what you put in as the lead time here. And then the average service percentage that you want to maintain for this vendor or manufacturer. And the default Poisson will determine, based on what you're selling, what the minimum quantity should be that you have in stock. The EOQ factor takes into consideration, or the economical order quantity, takes into consideration what it costs you to keep it in inventory, how much of it do you sell, and this will determine what the maximum quantity should be. Now, if it's an inexpensive part and you sell a lot of them, then the system is going to say, you should be ordering this by the truckload, but maybe you don't need truckloads. So you just we give you a place in here to say, I never want to have more than 12 weeks of stock in this case, and never less than 4 weeks of stock. Then to make it a stocking part, you tell us, is it 3 calls in 12 months, 3 calls in 6 months, and the system will tell you that you should be stocking the part. And it'll show up on your system stock order unless it's over $1,000 in impact in this case. And then the system, if you say 0 calls in 12 months in this case, that will tell you it's a non-stocking part. And then on automatic orders, we can say if it's a returnable part, we want to review it if it's more than $200 for the part or $600 for the order. And then on non-returnable parts, we just lower the dollar amount. So then on the values tab, what we do here is we take the call and demand and the cost of the part into consideration to ramp up the service percentage on those parts. So if it's inexpensive and you sell a lot of it, you should always have it. So we just wrap up the service percentage so you always have it. If it's an expensive part, even where a situation where maybe you have to have one in stock and you only want to order that if you sell that one, then we can accommodate that as well.
Okay.
And then one last thing there, your stock order review. So you're in your expansion plans. Is that going to be someplace fairly local to you, or
No, it
no?
would be different.
It'll be in the United States.
Okay. Now, the reason I ask is I just wanted to understand how easy it might be for you to transfer, parts that they might have in inventory, back to yourself.
Right now, just to give you an idea, because of our process, we are very much just in time. So even on service vehicles that come in, basically they can pay overnight freight, but we'll give them a planning document and an estimate within 2 days. And basically, if they want things freighted in overnight, they can pay the freight, but we only have about $80,000 worth of stock on site, and we deal with Gales, Brodersons, JCBs, Skytrax, JLGs, Genies, because we rely on our process being just in time. Typically, parts delivery in Florida is 3 days, so I can typically get it in, planned, and out within 2 weeks, and most of the folks are okay with that as far as service.
Okay. So you wouldn't do a lot of systems generated stock orders then?
No, actually, we're starting to generate quite a bit. That's one of the things I've invested in this year, is setting up the stock system in our maintenance program so that we could basically quit running down to Napa and quit running to the local vendors for stuff, where we've got them on an automatic order now.
Oh, okay.
When we use
So
air filters or the common stuff like you're talking about, as far as stocking levels.
So this is a system generated stock order, and of course, in my little demo system, I don't sell a lot of stuff, but so I actually ran this out for several different manufacturers just so I could get some stuff on my deal where you could actually do this, and then when we say issue the PO, we'll issue a separate PO for each one of these manufacturers.
Right.
And then you want the system, the part number, the order quantity. This is availability for transfer, which doesn't sound like that's going to apply. Your item limits, so these ran up against, those cost limits that we had in there. Whether it's just a straight order, on hand now, on order now, cost. You can go in and say, I want to change the source. And maybe you issue a purchase order to Napa and go pick up a bunch of parts.
So one of the things, how does your system deal with shipping cost of parts? So I have these orders that automatically generate, they go out, and each one has a cost for shipping, but I might have 10 parts on it. How does your system deal with that shipping cost?
Well, when you receive the, so you're talking about it, you get an order, you have an order, or you have a work order, and you need to buy some parts.
I have 10 parts that go out to CAT. It's on a purchase order. They're all stocked items. System generated PO that has 10 items needed for CAT. CAT sends it in. It was $100 shipping. How do I get that charge of shipping into the system or against that part?
Well, in our case, what would happen is at the receipt time, you have the ability to take that $100 in freight and distribute it to the different orders that are being because we would actually the way our system works, if you create an order like that, it could actually be for 2 or 3 work orders, 2 or 3 counter sales, and all, combine those all together, and then you can distribute that to the different orders, as well as get it onto, as, hit your freight account with it.
Okay. So there's nothing automatic on the receipt of a PO that I can just distribute it 5% each as a default. So if I had 10 items, $10 an item, if it was $100 shipping.
No. Today you would the reason that we did it the way we did was because it essentially gives you the ability to get the freight on wherever you think you can best get it. So, for instance, if you got one order that has a bunch of little inexpensive parts on it, or you've got another one that has a lot of expensive parts on it, it's a lot easier to get your $100. Maybe you hit the larger order with $50 of freight, and then the smaller orders with less freight. And that's kind of the reason that we do it the way we do it, is because, first of all, that's how our customers ask us to do it. Now we do have we do some things with landed costs and things like that, which it takes into all of, a lot of that stuff into consideration, but it's more to raise the price of to raise the cost of the part, which then automatically gets marked up. But we could, if that's something you wanted it to do, a percentage of the freight, I mean, we could divvy that up to the different orders as opposed to letting you put it in manually.
I'm good. You've answered the question. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or anything that you want to take a
Accounting.
Okay.
So let me just ask, all your costs basically in the system at an asset level, and then you guys just do the journal entries into the accounting side?
No, we don't. Well, the only time you would have to do a journal entry is if you had to, reverse, something or something like that. I mean, I guess I'm not exactly sure what you're asking.
So, all right, well, go
You're
to
saying,
accounting.
does it transfer over to the accounting side, the parts?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Or
it's
do
all
you have to
integrated.
put in a bill when you get the actual bill?
Oh no, so when you receive the parts, we create a receiver.
Okay.
And then in order to get that vouchered for payment, then you'll have a PO, maybe, don't have to have a PO, but if you have a PO, the vendor comes in and then we created a receiver. And so I'm basically looking at the status of this PO. So we've got, one item on here and it's been received but not vouchered. We could have things that are ordered and not received yet. And maybe we've got some things that we've received and already vouchered. So that becomes that's our receiver.
So it goes in as accounts payable? At that
It goes
point?
into accounts payable, yes.
And you receive
And
it,
depending
or when
on-
you get the...
No, when you get the invoice.
Okay.
So you'd have an invoice number, you'd create some sort of a voucher. So we've got, $40,000 is what's on there. We could adjust that on the detail. So if there was, for instance, if there were, additional shipping charges or something like that, that we didn't know about at the receipt time, you could go ahead and get those vouchered in, and then depending on what account you wanted to hit with it, is where that would, is where you would go. And then depending on,
Where's the GL account go?
right here. So you've got company, account number, branch, and department.
That account number is the GL account number?
Yes.
Okay.
And that came, and that was from the vendor.
Okay.
All right, so you've got your invoice date, the due date, and then depending on how the vendor is set up, will determine what this status flag says. So if the vendor's set up to say pay when due, then that will default to pay when due, or you can say, I want to hold this. Well, maybe I can't. Oh, you could. Let's default to whatever the vendor is, what the vendor says. And you just say, okay, and then now we've vouchered that into payables. And so when you do a check run or an electronic payment run, or whatever you want to, however you want to do that, then that will show up in there. In
accounts payable accounts?
Ask that one more time. There's some buzzing going on.
Report that says open accounts payable and what dates they're due. Open. You probably want open register. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
And you can have a range.
Where's the due date on here?
Right here.
Date entered, due date. There we go. Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Okay. Yeah, so under accounting, we do have journal entries, standard and recurring entries. From a standpoint of the GL account, we have the ability to run multiple companies in the database. So that's why we have company as part of the, and then we have branch and department. And so this is a equipment inventory account. So this, you don't have to use 100. This could be one. And
Okay,
your
how
branch.
about financial reporting?
Financial reporting? Yeah, we can go all the way down to the department level.
Okay.
Let me
under
give you
Overall, like, show me a P&L report.
Okay. We have that available as a drill down. Financial. P&L. Show you that one. I've got a couple different ones, but. And so then I've got short-term rental inventory. So then I have these two accounts rolled up behind that line. If I drill down here, then I see the rental invoices in this case that made up that line. If I drill down further, this shows me all of the GL accounts that got hit for that invoice. And then if I'm not an accounting person, I just hit the invoice itself.
Let me ask a scenario.
Okay.
The scenario is our services organizations bills our sales division. So if we have a sales division, a rental division, and a services division. Services division does this work on a for sale machine. I want them to be able to bill the sales organization. Now, with that being said, the sales organization then it's got to sort of be a work in progress. So recognize the revenue or the loss upon the sale of that asset.
Okay. So you would just have some internal customers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so you just have some internal customers, and then you would have some that, you know, capitalize repairs, some that expense repairs.
Our rental division, why we're refurbishing machine, which would go into our re-rental division, you know, why it's a work in progress. Once it's done, then it'll be capitalized. And it'll be, you know, charged to the rental division.
Right, and do you have any need for them to do a work order, you know, to approve it before it gets charged to them?
Yes, probably. You know, you probably get the same, because it starts with the quote.
Okay, that's fine. And then as they actually can go into the work order. So we kind of we create the invoice and we do all the account. We create the invoice, but we suspend it if the customer has work order approval set up on them. If they do, then they can go in and, you know, approve it, hold it, review it, and then we have a setting in the system that says if somebody doesn't approve it within a certain length of time, it will go ahead and create the invoice and do all of the accounting and hit the asset and all that.
Do you have classes set up to where you can divide out those divisions?
Well, you can use departments.
Okay. And then can you do financial statements according to a department?
Yep. Yeah, it's part of the GL account. So so when you're doing your financial selections, here you tell us what branches and departments are going to be on those financials.
But will it do it by line? Okay, say I want the service in one line, the sales in another line on the statement.
Yeah, it just depends on how you set up the financial format. And as part of the initial setup, we create the financial formats for you.
Okay.
So
for instance,
I've been listening. Let's see if I can summarize what I'm hearing. Okay, and if I have an asset, it comes in and it's to an internal customer or internally to our inventory. Basically, I enter it in as an asset. The customer is going to be whatever I designate as the internal customer. That's going to set up all the internal rates for that, any work that is done there. Okay. If I set up and do a work order for paint, I can categorize all the costs for paint as a single line item against that asset by that work order. I can come back in and I can do service work and categorize all the cost of that shipping can be added to that asset for getting it into the yard. And anything else that comes across that I need to add for cost to that asset can be put in through either work orders, basically through work orders. I don't know if, I guess you could do it by journal entries, but anyways, basically by work orders. Is that correct?
Yeah, so yes.
And
so
when
you could do it with a journal entry, but there's really not a reason to.
Yeah, and then when I get a report, basically I can have cost of the asset, cost of the shipping, cost of the service, cost of the paint, and if I had specialties like tires or large expenditures, cost of capital goods itemized. So if I bought 4 tires, we might capitalize it or call it a special category to track that I would be able to report against that asset.
Yeah, so what I've brought up here is the detail for a piece of equipment, for an asset, basically. So the asset ID is Clark 10. We've got pictures. We can also have other scanned documents or whatever you want to put in there, as long as it's a Windows compatible file that Windows can open. And then on the detail, we show everything that's ever happened to it. So we can always, so anything that's book value, the original cost, freight, write-downs, additions, capitalized repairs, depreciation and costing, those are all 1 through 6. Then we also track repairs, those are expense repairs, income, warranty billed and received, sublet repairs, billed repairs, and principal and interest. And all of that stuff comes into here all through normal course of business. So if you for instance, you added freight from AP, or you had a PO for it, you can always get back to that information. I mean, capitalized repair, of course not.
So, talking internally to Terry and Jim right now, basically when Jim would buy a piece of equipment, we could do it 2 ways, like we do now without a PO. But basically, or we enter the asset information that we do have on it in the system, issue a PO, and that starts the process where we can actually also ask for transportation, which assigns transportation over, which would be billed back to that asset.
That's exactly right. And we would recommend that you actually do use the PO, because you can create the asset at the same time. So it's just a 1-step process to do the PO and add the asset, and then it goes in the system in an ordered status. When you receive it, it becomes available. We'll let you buy into new, used, or rental inventories directly.
Can you show me an asset and the information it entails? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, so this is a list of assets. And so we've got the machine ID, the group, product, model, manufacturer, class, and subclass. So those are all ways you can break up your inventory. The serial number, and then it attaches to itself, so that means it's the main unit. But you could have other items attached to this, other serialized equipment attached to it.
Where's the total cost of item?
Like the book value, you mean?
Well, I need a place to put the selling value and what it costs. Is that what we're looking at now?
Yes. So this was the cost. We had some
Okay.
freight in.
And
We've been renting it at 60% of rent depreciation. I don't know what the heck?
Yeah, I like your bookkeeping there. We
Yeah.
cut a line quite a bit.
What the? That is, man, I don't.
pick another asset.
What is that right there? Demo data, you gotta love it. That is horrible. I don't know what that entry was. That's crazy.
I was probably a general manager trying to figure out what the accountant does and try to do it better.
Probably. All right, this is a simple one, but a good example. So we've got some, so this is the source of the entry. So we've got a purchase receipt, and it has an add-on piece, and so we've actually got two pieces here that we bought. So one was a main unit and an add-on piece. This is a type 5 or capitalized repair, and then you can always drill down and look at the repair.
You have something that shows a summary of everything
The summary is here
there. Okay.
on the financial tab.
Okay, is there a space where you could put estimated repairs?
Estimated repairs?
Yeah. Like you've got a capitalized repair, but say we do an estimate and says it's gonna cost $5,000 to fix this piece of equipment. Is there a spot where you could put that?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure we've got an unused field or something like that we can re-tag
Okay.
it and.
Let me explain what she's asking about, okay? So basically, we have an inventory piece of equipment comes in, we quote it, okay? What she's wanting is that quoted value shown against that asset value so that they can come up with a sales price.
Okay.
So you'll have entered in here, you'll have the PO, the original amount, you'll have the freight if we follow using the system. Then it gets here, it's received. We start the work order process of quoting it. We come up with a number in the system by a quote that says it's going to cost $5,000 to do service, another $2,400 per paint. Those are two different departments, two different work orders. How do those show up that we can add it into the cost of that asset to just make a decision of, do we spend the money, do we don't spend the money, what's the sales price we're going to set? Before I do any work.
Yeah, so if you do set a standard sell price for it, or a sell price for it, we do have a place for you to put the standard sell, and that will show up, that will actually bring it into orders and show it in a bunch of different places. What I don't know for sure is I want to say under this open work order tab, if you had any quotes or anything that you'd created, they would show up under here, and I'm pretty sure they do.
They do or don't?
I'm not positive. I'll need to find out, but let's see. What is this thing? Oil 1. Let's just do something real quick here.
You should be able to see that just in the listing of the detail because they're either open or closed, right? Because a quote would be opened, an open situation.
Right. Seriously. pretty sure I'm going to get a complaint about this. It's telling us under warranty, or could be warranty. Oh, I want to make this a quote too. Yep. So I created a quote, and it shows up underneath there. It doesn't look like we have the amount of the quote out here, but that'd be simple to add. So you just have you'd have a list of your quotes and what the amount of it is. I doubt that really wouldn't show in the detail here.
History.
Yeah, it's because it's really not history for it. Now, could we potentially put it in there? Probably. But at least you'd have, this would, see how it even lights it up to tell you that there's stuff even there. And then there's a summary return on investment. There's memo notes.
Go back, please.
There?
Yep.
Remember, demo data. But the 12 months here is the rolling 12 months. And then the totals are life to dates.
Okay.
Do you have anything in here where you can put fields? We have machines that we bring in for to be sold, not just to be in a rental. And so we want to have a description of how the equipment is being sold, what it's being sold what it's advertised on our website and stuff like that. You have, I don't know, maybe that's more under your CRM module. I don't know.
So something that tells you what the, further defines what you're doing with it?
Well, we got ABC, unit 1, 2, 3. It's been refurbed and it's currently the asking price on our website is $3. We got unit DEF. It's sold as is, and we're asking $20, right? Which is so we know what the for sale stuff is being sold as.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind. Is we do have sub-statuses that you can define. So you can say, this is a selling unit or whatever so it's available and it's this kind of sub-status. Now, generally speaking, the standard sell is what we send to most of the websites.
So when you say standard sell, that is what, just the price?
That's just the price. And you determine what the price is.
Right, but do you do pricing description?
Pricing description.
For example, right? if we have a refurbished unit, comes with a 12-month powertrain warranty, and as is machine comes with no warranty.
Okay.
If you want to think about that and get back to us, that's fine.
Yeah, let me think about that.
We use our CRM system for that. And so where's the CRM system on here?
That green shaking hands.
Okay, so before you go there, do me a favor, while Terry and Kevin are on the line, before you go to that module, and we only have about 10 minutes left, I'd rather have you go into the credit app. Talk to us a little bit about that. I see it up there. Yep.
Credit? That's really just AR.
Okay. Isn't there I thought I saw something about credit checks and stuff like that?
Yeah, and we do that. So for credit checking, you set up a control file that tells us how you want to do it. Account receivable control. So, is there a service charge? Do you charge service charges? And then you can override that percentage by customer, or indicate, you may have some customers that don't get it, but from an automatic standpoint, you're going to charge a 1% service charge if they're over 30 days past due. If the service charge is less than $1, then we're going to charge a minimum. And then, do we include prior service charges in the calculation? And so we have all these different settings, basically. And then, do you check when you do an equipment sale? Do you check when you do rentals? Do you check when you do parts? Do you check on service work orders? How many days do they have to be past due for a credit check?
Let's do a quick example, right, or a couple of scenarios. One is somebody calls in for a part. The guy quotes the part, goes to place the order, but because we've got certain filters on the credit check, it will flag it to say, whoa, you can't place this order. This person's on credit hold or whatever. Is that, in theory, based on the formulas that we have, that we set up in the system? Okay, so the same would go for work orders too? Kevin takes an order. He takes an order for some service work and he places it, but it comes back and says, whoa, we might have a credit here.
Well, we'll even check. So let's say you open the work order and everything was okay, and then you started putting parts on the work order, and all of a sudden now they're over the credit limit. Okay. Then we'll stop you then too.
Okay.
And then basically they either have to get a credit release from somebody in credit to say it's okay, or or they need to collect some money, and then at that point, if they collect the money, then it most likely would then pass the credit check.
Okay. So we've got 5 minutes left. We got another meeting here. So one of the things I'd like to get, Jason, is just, we've gone through this as it needs some pricing from you on, we talking, a bread basket or, 100 bread baskets for configuration with you guys.
So how many users do you think you'd have using the system?
Define a user.
That would be someone who logs into the system.
All right. So we've been using the number 20, and I don't know if you have power users versus just like technicians who maybe just putting hours in. So, but just assume 20 then for budget purposes.
Okay. And do you want us to quote, so we'll let you do cloud or license the software and run it on your own servers. Do you want us to quote it both ways, or are you just thinking about cloud, or?
Please quote it both ways.
Okay, no problem.
And is
So
yours
yeah,
all
we'll put,
is it all bundled with the accounting CRM, or are those all add-ons, or?
no, it's the way we roll is that we give you everything we have, and you use as much of it or as little of it as you need to run your business. And let's say you want to turn on CRM one day, or if you didn't want to do that day one, and you decide you just want to turn it on, you just go turn it on.
Okay.
Or if your business changes a little bit, there might be something that you don't use right out of the gate. It'll just be turned off, but you just go turn it on when you're ready to use it. And there's no extra cost.
Okay. And then obviously training, whatever setup and all that.
Yeah, so there'll be a data conversion, the pre-site, the training, the go live training, and then usually we come back and do a financial statement, or basically go through and make sure that help you close the first month on the system, which is exactly like closing the year almost, and then make sure all the financials all look good, and then that's kind of usually the end of it. We'll quote all of that stuff.
Do you usually recommend a big bang approach or a running dual systems?
No, we convert all the data over at least twice. So we convert. So to answer your question, big bang, but we convert the data over and train you using your converted data. And then we do another data conversion before you go live. And then you're live on the system, and we do kind of over the shoulder training that second week.
But and I'm looking at changes to the chart counts too. So, but worry about
that's no problem. That's typical.
Okay.
Especially when you're coming off of kind of a kludgy of systems, that's typical.
Yeah, our system
Gentlemen,
was set up.
I am going to excuse myself. I appreciate all the good information and everything that you've shown today, and thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, we all got to get to this 3 o'clock meeting. So,
Yeah, we got 3 o'clock.
Yeah. When you just shoot me a quote when you can, and let's touch base then later. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you guys. Appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.